In the peaceful village of Mka, there lived a young woman named Siwe. She was the village beauty, admired by everyone who laid eyes on her. Her skin glowed like polished wood, her eyes sparkled, and her smile was radiant as the morning sun. Siwe knew she was beautiful, and she dreamt of marrying a rich man who could give her all the luxuries she imagined: fine clothes, sparkling jewelry, and a grand house where people could come and admire her. Many suitors came to her. They brought her family gifts of yam, palm oil, and even goods. But Sewe had high standards. She was not interested in men who worked small farms or those who barely had enough to live on. She wanted a man who could provide her with a life of ease and plenty. One day, as Sewe's family sat outside their compound, a young man named Te approached. Te was known in the village, but he was quiet and did not stand out much. He wore simple clothes and had a calm way about him. People respected him because he was humble and honest, but no one really knew about his personal life. Te stood before Sewe's father and spoke to him in a respectful tone. "Sir, I am here to ask for permission to speak with your daughter, Sewe," he said. Sewe's father looked at him, surprised but polite. "You may speak with her, Te," he replied, and Sewe was called over. Te looked at Sewe with sincere eyes and said, "Sewe, I would like to ask for your hand in marriage. I believe we could build a good life together." Sewe looked at him from head to toe. She saw the plainness of his clothes, the lack of jewelry, and his quiet demeanor. In her mind, she immediately thought, this man has nothing. She wanted a husband who could give her a grand life. And Te looked as if he could barely support himself. Sewe shook her head and laughed softly, but her words were sharp. "You marry me? Te, do you have land? Do you own a herd of cattle? How will you give me the life I want?" Te looked at her steadily. "Sewe, a person's worth isn't in the things you can see. My wealth might not be visible, but I promise you I can care for you with love and respect." But Sewe wasn't convinced. She laughed louder now, her voice echoing around the compound and catching the attention of nearby villagers. "Te, I'm sorry, but you should look for someone at your level. I deserve a man who can take care of me properly." Te was sad, but he kept his composure. "I understand, Sewe," he said quietly, and then he turned and left without another word. After Te left, Sewe's mother, who had overheard the conversation, approached her. "Sewe, do not be quick to judge a man by his appearance. Sometimes wealth is hidden," she said. But Sewe brushed up her mother's words. "Mother, a man's wealth should be obvious. If he had anything, he would show it." A few weeks later, Sewe heard from other villagers that Te had married a woman from a neighboring village. Her name was Msu, and she was known for her warm and humble spirit. Though she wasn't as strikingly beautiful as Sewe, she was respected by everyone who knew her. Te and Msu's wedding was small and simple, but it was filled with joy and laughter. Sewe paid little attention to the news. She thought to herself, "Good for him. I hope he found someone who doesn't care about living in poverty." She continued meeting other suitors, but none of them seemed rich enough to meet her high standards. Then one afternoon, Sewe's friend Mimi came running up to her eyes wide with excitement. "Sewe, did you hear?" she asked breathlessly. Sewe looked at her puzzled. "Hear what?" "Tay isn't poor. He's actually one of the richest men in the region. He is a gold merchant. He sells gold in other villages and even in the big towns," Mimi said, her voice full of amazement. Sewe's heart stopped. "What? Tay, a gold merchant?" "Yes," Mimi nodded. "Everyone just found out. He kept it a secret because he didn't want people to treat him differently. I heard he also has a storehouse full of gold and he sells to wealthy traders in the towns. Tay is very rich, Sewe." Sewe felt a wave of regret washed over her. She remembered how she had laughed at him, how she had mocked his simple clothes and quiet demeanor. She had assumed he was poor, but now she realized that she had judged him too quickly. If only she had looked beyond his appearance. As the days passed, Sewe couldn't stop thinking about Tay. She felt a deep regret and an ache in her heart. She tried to dismiss it, telling herself that she had plenty of other suitors. But none of them could compare to Tay now, not when she knew he was one of the wealthiest men in the area. One evening, Sewe saw Msu in the market. She was buying vegetables and her face had a look of contentment and peace. Summoning courage, Sewe approached her. "Msu," she said, forcing a smile. "How is Tay?" Msu looked at her and replied, "Tay is well. He's a kind husband and I'm very happy with him." Sewe forced another smile and said, "Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear it." She turned away quickly, her heart heavy with regret. She could see the happiness in Msu's eyes, the same happiness she had once dreamed of for herself. Over the next few weeks, Sewe's regret only grew stronger. Every time she saw Tay and Msu together, she felt the sting of what she had lost. She watched as Tay bought beautiful clothes and jewelry for Msu. She saw that the small house that they once lived in, they moved out, and Tay built a beautiful, elegant home for him and his wife. Sewe knew that she had missed her chance and there was no going back. The final blow came at a village festival. Tay was invited to showcase his gold work as a mark of honor, given only to respected tradesmen. He arrived with Msu by his side and displayed some of the gold jewelry he had crafted. The villagers marveled at his skill and wealth. They congratulated Msu for having such a successful and talented husband. Sewe watched from the edge of the crowd, her heart filled with regret. She felt a deep sadness as she realized how much she had lost because of her pride. She had wanted a life of wealth and comfort, and it had been right in front of her all along, but she let it slip through her fingers. After the festival, Sewe approached Tay. "Tay," she said quietly, "I was wrong. I should not have judged you by what you wore. I was foolish and I regret it deeply. Tay looked at her with gentle eyes but shook his head. Sewe, we all make choices. I choose to live humbly and Msu chose to walk that path with me. I am grateful for her kindness and her trust in me. Sewe nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. She knew she couldn't change the past, and she walked away, feeling the weight of her regret. As time went on, Sewe remained unmarried. She lived a quiet life, and over the years, she became known as a wise, elderly woman. She often told her story to young women in the village, warning them not to judge a person by appearances alone. She would say, "True wealth is not in the clothes someone wears or the things they own. True wealth is in the heart." She lived with her regrets, but she used it to guide others, hoping they would not make the same mistake she had made. And though she never married, she found some peace in knowing that her story would serve as a lesson for generations to come. Thank you, dear viewers, for watching this interesting story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please tell me in the comment section. Also, I'd like to know what part of the story touched you the most and what lessons you learned. Kindly like, share and subscribe. Till I come your way again next time, it's bye from me.